going live. We are live.
Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the March 2020 podcast for Outpost 1018. How are you all doing? I hope everyone is nice and cozy and safe inside their warm, non-infected house. And if you're not, I hope you are making a lot of money for your risk. How is everyone doing? It is great to be here. It is great to be back once again for the anime podcast. This time, we are reviewing Mugi. Or was it Magi?
Magi.
Magi, The Adventures of Sinbad.
Starting off great. All right.
Yeah. I was doing so well. Anyway, we are reviewing Magi, The Adventures of Sinbad. And this is a prequel to an anime that none of us have watched except for Crimson Shogun over here.
And I watched about half of the first season before I realized I was watching
Yeah,
the wrong thing.
and I think the idea was that we were supposed to see if this prequel stands up by itself out of the context of the original anime. And that's what we're here to find out. While everyone introduce themselves, I'm of course Neo Tokyo Tempo.
I am Getsuryu, or Josh.
I'm RJ, otherwise known as Red Baron or Crimson Ronin.
Striker Red, your boy.
All right. And unfortunately, 676 and Lolly Dominatrix could not make it. They have personal issues that they're dealing with. And I wish them both very good luck. Obviously, their real lives are more important than this. Anyway, why don't we just jump straight into this? As far as animation goes, I think it was quite competent. I liked the art style. It was nice and bright and colorful. Fight scenes were quite dynamic, I'd say.
The first major fight scene is when he's a teenager and he's fending off those bandits and protecting those travelers.
Yeah,
Like
and he jumps down and steps on one of their heads.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some Prince of Persia style aerobatics.
Yeah, there's a lot of very good choreography, I guess I'd call it. And motion is nice and fluid, and the battles are quite interesting with all the vastly different fighting styles that all these different nations that are involved in the show use. There were a couple moments that were off, like there was one fight with what's his face? Spear. Let me actually look at the character list because I'm horrible with names.
Just describe who he is and I'll tell you.
Mistras. There was a fight.
Yep.
The fight between Mistras and Darius. There was one moment where he does an attack and it felt like I was supposed to take it seriously. But he does that wacky, exaggerated anime thing where he's swinging and there's a bunch of spears poking to exaggerate how fast he's moving. It looked kind of silly, but I think I was supposed to take it seriously. I thought that was kind of weird. But otherwise, that's all well and good.
So, I'll jump in here. I think the art style in general just was a little bit more unique than most animes, where it didn't it's obviously an anime, but it still kind of had some Middle Eastern feels to it, and there was a lot more bright and vibrant colors than I was expecting from an anime like this. So I'd say that just the eye catchiness to
There's
the
a
look
lot.
in
There's a lot.
was better than
there's
expected.
there's a lot of vibrancy regarding the atmosphere. There's nothing goes dull in there. especially.
It feels like there's nice contrast in color, and the bright colors pop out on nice dark backgrounds. And you have a lot of bright blues and like dark browns coming off each other, and it's quite good looking. There are a couple issues that I did notice, like in the third to last episode. The queen.
Mira.
Yeah. She has a tattoo on the side of her face, and when there was a complete side-on shot, it definitely should have been moving when she was talking, because of how faces work.
Yeah,
but
that
it was
that was also an issue where when she shows up in the regular Magi series, not to spoil much, but there's a scene where Sinbad shows up with all of his allies, and this is of course years later. Sinbad's a full-grown man by then, and when she's talking, there's also animation issues. It's just the studio had a few frame fumbles in both series.
Yeah, it's not really a big deal though. It's not a game breaker. It's only like a one moment that's a few seconds long. So
It's pretty consistent across animes that whenever they have like a face thing like that sometimes you don't get movement. Like I'd say more likely than not you're not gonna get movement on like scars and things like that.
yeah, it was just quite noticeable because the tattoo came down like right next to her mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Outside of that, I think just the animation was good. The fight scenes in general are pretty good, and like I said, I enjoyed just the art style as a whole. I thought that like one thing that I noticed is like a lot of the backgrounds seemed more realistic than in most animes, while like
For sure.
you had like the anime kind of characteristics up front with very unique characters. Like even if you don't like know the names very well, because they are Middle Eastern names, a lot of the time, you're looking at it and you can just recognize the characters and their personality the second they come back on screen. So you aren't like mixing.
Yeah, especially Dragon, who is Sinbad's rival.
Yeah, that guy is like he perfectly encapsulated Persian nationalism. Like I know like Persia's called Partavia in the series, but it's obviously Persia. And he's like, "Who do you think you are, abandoning your duty to this country?" And Sinbad's like, "Dude, my dad died fighting for you guys, and we didn't get jack shit." Excuse my language. But yeah, like the two of them have this conflicting like personality thing, because you do have, because Persian culture it's got a little bit of Oriental elements in it. So you do have the free thinkers, the philosophers, academic types, and Sinbad kind of his character falls into that line. And then you have just the hardcore patriotic people, like you need to pull your weight in. I mean, especially given that his family is like married into the royal family because they're like the part of the military. So his character, like, it kind of just fit for that. And remember when he like almost died, he freaked out and told Sinbad to kill him because he felt pathetic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. No, like whoever wrote these characters did a decent job with balancing their personality. They're not the same carbon copy thing.
Yeah, and they're actually they have very good chemistry.
Yeah, they all have. We can get into the later when we're actually talking about the characters, but they all definitely have a different like cultural ideologies, and it makes them work off of each other in interesting
Your voice
ways.
keeps breaking up. Just letting you know.
Let me disconnect and reconnect. Just one moment.
All right, so
I couldn't
while
figure
he's,
out what Sasan was supposed to be. Like Sasan, the kingdom of Sasan reminded me of northern Iran, but it also reminded me of Constantinople and Turkey. So
yeah,
All right. How is this? Is it better?
yeah. Oh no,
yep,
no,
yep.
you lagged out. Really damn bad.
Did I lag out? Talking,
If you
talking,
if
talking.
if
Is
you've
it
got
better?
if
Now
you got
we're good.
any
Now we're good.
if you got any downloads going, you might want to.
Yeah. You know what I find interesting?
Hold on. Let
Yeah.
me turn that off.
Yeah. Let's let's
You,
fill time while
you,
he's figuring this out. But go ahead.
you know what I find
Just move on to the music.
All right. Yeah. We'll go into the music and the opening, closing music. I honestly found it forgettable. I watched all of it in the past 2 days, and just I didn't really find either of the songs super catchy. I kind of found them like off theme a little bit, um, compared to what I would have expected from an anime like this. So
I found the music in the anime to be kind of all over the place. Like some of it was very fitting, but some of it was just kind of random. Like there was like this. I remember there was this one point when Sinbad was talking, and like it was supposed to be like some sort of like scene where he's like convincing someone something, but it like does this like almost edgy sounding like electronic music.
I was just about to bring that exact one up, where it was just like it kind of sounded like it wanted
Are
to
you
be
talking
like
about the dungeon?
no,
Are you talking about like
no,
the
it was
first dungeon or?
no, it was near the ending. It was like he was like trying to like inspire the I think it was the queen of the one nation.
Oh yeah,
And
Artemira. Yep, yep.
yeah, and then like they played like that music, and it like the music did not fit. It sounded like they messed up the track, and they
Yeah,
should have been
yeah.
putting that in a fight
At
scene.
first, yeah, at first I thought like there was something wrong with the version I was watching, and like the music. You remember Trigun and the dilemma of the spider and the butterfly, right? Um,
Yeah,
do,
Ribbons tries to get. Yep, yep.
yeah. Do you remember the music that plays as soon as Knives grabs the spider?
I call them ribbons. These knives.
Um, like it almost sounded like that music, except less intense. It just didn't fit for the scene.
Yeah, it like
And then characters in the show don't have their own themes, neither do locations, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, even in Magi, whenever they show up, it's just Sinbad's theme that plays because Sinbad's shtick is that he has basically formed his own, like without spoiling much because I finished the manga, but he started the foundations for like an ancient form of the United Nations. So whenever they show up, it's just his theme.
Yeah.
yeah, it they could have done a lot more with the music, and whenever I am watching an anime for this podcast, and I have to remind myself, oh wait, I have to be listening to the background music, just so I can talk about it. That's never a good sign. I honestly found like most of it forgettable until I started like really focusing on it, and then it was just it's very filler esque of just like we need some background noise a lot of the time, and I didn't enjoy that part. It's probably one of the things that fell flat the most.
I think my favorite track was honestly the when it's like I think it's like the second or third episode where he's escaping Persia and like the authorities are trying to arrest him because they're like you conquered the dungeon but you're refusing to give up any of the powers or treasure you got inside. So he hijacks oh no, he doesn't hijack, he bought a ship. um he he buys a ship, he temporarily grabs the princess who tries to arrest him as hostage, lets her go, and then escapes. And then that theme that played right when he's like, "I'm gonna explore like all seven seas or something." It's like it's like a friggin' like guitar solo, but like instead of like an overdrive tone, it's like a electronica, like that sounded like good because it was like right at a point where it like he's about to embark on an adventure. But that's the thing, like it was timed properly and it sounded good. Other than that, I think Will also noticed, like Neo Tokyo noticed, the show has kind of like a Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger vibe to it. So like some of the music does fit, but a lot of it doesn't actually. So yeah, I agree with you guys on that.
I
Yeah.
must be the only guy here who actually liked the intro song to this anime. Because it's actually pretty hype.
It was.
Oh,
a
yeah,
good
yeah,
intro,
for
it
sure.
just didn't sound like it should be with this anime. Was my issue.
Yeah, it sounded like it should be like for Full Metal Alchemist or something.
Yeah, it was like there's so much themes around the Middle East and around like the Persian kind of like empire and like all of that kind of stuff that I wanted something closer that kind of represented that, and I got none of that out of the intro. Like even just like a small amount of theme of just like Middle Eastern music would have went a long way, even if it was still Japanese
Yeah,
music.
they really could have done a lot with like matching the music in general to the art style.
And I had an issue with that whenever I was watching the main series too, where the music doesn't match at all either. So it seems to be something that they're just missing. Maybe they didn't like any Middle Eastern music, or I mean, but it would be so easy just to throw in like a sitar and like Asian music that it just
They did
it
that.
seems like it's just missing it, you know?
Yeah, they did that in the mainstream the main series where he shows up. Like the theme is very Persian sounding.
Yeah.
But unfortunately with this one, it was like I think they just wanted a Russian OVA to promote the manga. That happens a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
They'll do an OVA just to get you to read the manga.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think that was the thing that felt most flat out of all the issues. But I think we can move on. If we want to talk about like the voice acting.
Oh, can I
because-
start? Can I start this after you?
Yeah. I'm gonna say again, like I always do. I watch it in English if I can, and then everyone else pretty much watches in Japanese. So we're gonna have
Yeah,
different
that
takes
that
on
allows
each
us
setting.
to review both.
Yeah.
I need to
Both
ask you guys
tracks.
something.
So
What?
What did you think of the arc where they went to totally not Greece, which was the Artemura, the one where it was like a female. It was weird. It was like it was a
God.
We
'cause
can
I-
get there because I have a
Oh,
lot of issues,
okay.
and we'll talk about
yeah
that.
yeah.
Whenever we get to the
Real
plot,
quick.
but go
I
ahead.
was also gonna say to like I mentioned this to Neo Tokyo before any of us even watched. I basically said they take regions and melt them together. So like the Vikings and Eskimos and Turkmens. Turkmens are an ethnic group north of Iran. They're very like I don't know what it's called. They travel by horse, and their families consist of different clans and stuff. So they took these ethnic groups and melted them into one.
Yeah,
So they're nomadic.
I saw
Nomadic,
that.
yeah.
I saw that group, and I was like, why is the Water Tribe and Avatar muscular? Like that was the only thought I was having the entire time I saw them.
I was feeling that the ice area was more like up north, like somewhere between Iceland or the Nordic regions. It
Yeah,
does-
I like how the ritual or the rite of passage is you got to slay a narwhal.
Oh yeah.
yeah, All right, so
Anyways, let's get
let's,
back. Yeah, let's get back.
yeah. Let's get into the characters, which is sort of interchangeable with voice acting. I found all the side characters, like the supporting cast, to be very, very good. Each one of them had sort of their own episode with its own arc that really filled out their character into fully believable human beings that grow and change as they face hardship and adversity.
Especially the youngest, which well, his parents were part of a group of assassins, and he had no other choice but to
The young,
Jafar. He's talking about
Yeah,
Jafar.
Jafar.
Jafar. Yeah, basically, Jafar's arc was pretty much authentic of all things.
Oh yeah, he was traumatized because from a young age, like his clan basically forced him to kill his own parents to show that he's loyal to them.
Yeah. I will say something, and this is completely off topic from this a little bit, because it was in the main series. Jafar had my favorite line in the main series. Whenever Sinbad was talking, like Jafar just walks away and he's like the horror of the seven seas, and he's like, what? And he's like, nothing.
Wait, horror or horror as in fear or horror?
Horror.
Why did I notice that?
No,
Because he's a womanizer.
That was in the no, that was it. It was the womanizer of the seven seas, and and that was in the main series. That's why I said it's off topic. But he actually gains personality in the main series, so I wanted to kind of say that how he is in this even gets better later if you decide to watch the main one.
In a sense of family, because he since he's pretty much adopted by his co-host's wife.
By the way, so Dragon, are you like showing the characters as you're talking about them?
I could. I just have the thing on a player, but I can bring up an image really quick of each one.
Oh, there we go. Rurumu, that's his co-host's wife.
So
Yeah.
I'm not
I
gonna
found,
spoil anything about this series, but yeah, go ahead.
What was the name of Sinbad's rival?
Drakon.
Drakon. Yeah, Drakon, he was my favorite character. I liked I really liked his resolve and his loyalty to his nation and to his people. It at first, like, when you first see him, he looks like the worst person ever, like just like some horrible oppressive like slave master or something. But then you really very quickly realize that he actually cares quite a bit about his men. You even see this right at the beginning where, like, he throws a knife and it's like and says, like, stop talking, and then it's like, oh my god, he's horrible, he's violent to the men. And then at the end of the scene, you see the knife chopped a scorpion in half.
Yeah. When the wagon.
Yeah. He has like a very good sense of honor, but he struggles immensely from his like sense of duty, and then finding out like that like his country is just using him. So
yeah.
The whole thing that because we didn't mention it, but so all these countries are renamed in the anime, but like Rome is the Rem Empire, China's called the Ko Empire, blah blah blah. Persia's Partavia, and what happens basically is Persia and Rome start fighting. Sinbad's father is a war veteran, and he comes back home disabled, like he's missing a leg and he's got scars all over his body. And he basically donates his money to his village because he thinks war is a terrible thing. He doesn't want to glorify it. He's a fisherman, and when they accidentally harbor a Roman spy, and that backfires, like they didn't realize that their guest was actually a spy. The military uses that as an excuse to take Sinbad's dad, who's, keep in mind, disabled, missing a leg, back into service. And when he dies, they just send his sword home. Like, your father died an honorable death, etc., etc. Drakon very much encapsulates that sense of we need to keep our country safe from the Romans, etc., etc. But then again, like as you mentioned, he's struggling between morality and honor.
Yeah.
Let me point something out. Imuchak happens to be like up, so I was right. It's somewhere since they are more or less the Vikings of the saga.
Yeah, they're Eskimo Vikings. That's what's fascinating.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. These guys were Eskimo, and
no, Eskimo Vikings. Like it was like the two cultures like meshed into one.
Yeah, the same could be said about the Sasa Empire, which is basically based on the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, the Sasan Empire reminded me of northern Persia and Turkey. Like it was like, or Constantinople as well. It's like they're highly religious. They prefer to like live in the mountains. They have this like giant city built in the mountains. They don't trust outsiders, and they're even more hardcore about patriotism and faith.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So let's address sort of the elephant in the room. While all the side characters I quite enjoy, and I quite like their arc and watching them grow and change as people. Sinbad is horrible. Sinbad is one of the worst characters I have seen in a long time. He is the definition of a Gary Stew. Sinbad is perfect from birth. He
He's so perfect. He's so perfect that Magi from all across the world detect his birth. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So basically, the man is overpowered from the start.
He was given like basically superhuman powers of like sense, and then on top of that, he's just like known as the guy that's going to become the king, the guy that's going to like fix everything like that. It's his name is known far and wide, and it's just
it makes sense for him to be like really powerful after he conquers 2 dungeons, but even before he conquered 2 dungeons, he's like already like the greatest fighter in the world.
He's just the ultimate
and he didn't
prodigy.
Yeah, and he didn't like train to become the greatest fighter in the world. He just is the greatest fighter in the world.
He's got force powers.
Because he's Sinbad. Well, even force powers, they have to be trained if you're watching real Star Wars. Even force powers have to be trained. No, he was a toddler and he led his father
out of a storm.
Yeah.
I think like it was like what, he was like 11 at one point whenever he was like beating people up and like winning fights, and then he was like 14 whenever he was like starting to conquer the world, and then like by the end of this I think he's like 16 or 17. Like
he's around almost 19.
Okay,
like
19 by the end.
Yeah. I finished his manga as well. It was a pain getting a hold of translations, but if you guys don't mind spoilers, so he manages to. So here's what happens. He manages to build a kingdom like what he dreamt of. He goes back. Oddly enough, he goes back to Persia. He's no longer a fugitive. Because what happens is Dracon's older brother Barbarossa, the guy at the very beginning who's like, I don't love my wife. This is simply a political thing, and Dracon's like disturbed by it, by his brother's coldness. Barbarossa becomes Persian Hitler. He starts off by telling Sinbad, we're better than everyone else, and Sinbad's like, dude, no, my entire crew is a group of people from different countries. And you go, and the Barbarossa's response is, who's their leader? And then Sinbad's just speechless. He's like, exactly, you're their leader, which shows that, the Persians are the best. So, but the reason Barbarossa does that is because he's slaughtered the nobles. He basically killed the emperor. His now ex-wife has escaped with Drakon, and they're under Sinbad's protection. And basically, it leads to a really, really, really bad event, which causes a lot of deaths in Sinbad's kingdom. Without spoiling anything further than that, and it's mentioned in the main series as well that the first Sindrian nation was utterly destroyed. And around the time that Alibaba and Aladdin meet him in the main series, the reason he got mugged because he was drunk was because at the end of his manga, he's a full grown man and he's basically going to a hill to watch over where in the direction of where his kingdom used to be, and he's drinking in the memory of the people he lost because he a lot of his friends died, like including characters we meet in this offshoot. And while he's drunk, a couple of thieves steal his stuff, including his metal vessels, and that's how it ends. It literally ends on the frame where he's naked and he's covered himself with leaves, and like Alibaba's freaking out, like, who the heck is this naked man? But yeah, he is a Gary Stu because up until that point, he single-handedly beats everyone. He even beats Barbarossa.
It's not just that he beats everyone. He never, ever does anything wrong, ever. Besides, like, once near the end of the show.
Oh, he also does it in the manga as well. There's one or two arcs where he gets enslaved. He makes a bet, doesn't realize that it's rigged against his favor, becomes a slave to this. I think she was Arabic because she was called Madara, and or Madar. Mother Madar is Persian, but the way it was pronounced sounded Arabic. She's basically this slave owner who her entire empire is built off of selling slaves, and she wanted Sinbad as one of her slaves. So he took his time, and then he basically manipulated the other slaves into overthrowing her.
Okay.
So wait, really quick. So yeah, he makes tiny mistakes here and there, even in the manga, but he never loses.
The mistakes he makes are minor mistakes, and like no matter what adversity all the characters are facing, he just has the solution, and he's never like completely outdone or at rock bottom or being stomped into the dirt or anything like that. He never like really faces true adversity besides like monsters in front of him, but the monsters in front of him he just slaughters with ease, even if they're super powerful.
Yeah, the very first dungeon with the dragons, that was insane. He just grabs that African style shield that Drakon had. He's like, I'm gonna need to borrow this. He
keep in mind, up to this point, he had minimal combat experience. He was some peasant from some random village.
Yeah. He grabs the shield, he surfs, and then he slays the dragon.
Yeah, he surfs on a geyser that appeared randomly. That couldn't have possibly been predicted.
Yeah. His superpower is that he can predict the waves, as in he can predict, like, he has precognition, that's what it's called in tabletop stuff. So he can predict the future, or rather the direction that the energy flow of the world will go.
He can see things 5 seconds at a time, basically, is how that works.
Yeah.
Normally, yeah. But yeah, no, it's kind of hinted that way too, but it's just it's so overpowered. Like we were saying, it'd be really hard to sit here and compare him to like other anime characters that have been this overpowered, and I think that's where we're all kind of like in agreement that that he's a little bit too bullshit of a character.
Yeah.
Because,
well, we could compare him to Goku, but Goku gets his ass beat all the time.
The only character I can even think of is like Kirito in Sword Art, and like that's about it.
That's not a good comparison.
Yeah,
arguably.
yeah, that's not a good thing if you're being compared to Kirito.
Yeah,
doesn't Kirito like effortlessly defeat everyone all the time?
Yeah, until season. Until like the latest seasons, yeah.
You know, I could honestly compare Sinbad to Ray from the Star Wars.
Yeah.
But that's more of an
I was actually gonna say
I think he's a little bit more likable than her.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was gonna say, even Alibaba, who is arguably the main character of Magi next to Aladdin,
Mhm.
even Alibaba makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Aladdin almost got killed a couple times in the main series.
Yeah.
Alibaba almost got killed a couple times.
Yeah. So he's just a little bit too overpowered, and it makes it not a fun ride because it's all about him and about how he's just winning all the time. Um, it'd be a lot better if we saw a little bit more adversity, like him struggling to get through these dungeons would have been one of the better things. Like seeing him like start to fail and then like figure things out because like a lot of these dungeons they feel like they should be like a puzzle game. Um, and like where you like slowly piece things together. And like he figured out the cat thing like extremely fast, right? Where he got everyone to work together. It should have been him like watching, piecing it together, seeing the cat's movements, and then like seeing like, oh, I can do this. Or it could have been like,
In the manga, he eventually does lose a dungeon, and he loses it to the girl Serendine or
Yeah.
Serendine.
yeah, I get that, but like he kind of go. But I'm saying like the dungeon should be difficult, and you should be able to see like the
Yeah.
challenges of like him like figuring things out. I mean and I just remembered because it came up on the screen. He blasts through like what 8 mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
When he was
just
meeting
shows,
Darius.
it just shows how like OP he is. Like it's like, oh,
Yeah,
now he's
he's a
just a god.
walking
Okay, cool.
he's a walking Death Star.
Yeah, it's just it's a little too much. And I think that we can move on past Sinbad knowing that he's the major flaw in his own show.
He's the main flaw.
Hmm.
Well, here's the other thing. The author of the Magi universe. Oh, she has a new series, by the way. It's called Orient. It's more Japanese than like this.
Yeah.
Also, Lewis sent me the name of the slave owner. Her name is Amidara. She's actually in the Magi anime. They meet a group of children who are attacking ships, and it turns out that the slave owner that Sinbad beat kidnapped a bunch of kids and brainwashed them to fight for her. But anyways, so she wrote this like the writer of the series. Let me get her name. She wrote this with a beginning and end in mind, and then the side story is supposed to converge, if that makes sense. But the issue is the way it's done is it's way too linear. It's way too straightforward. It just goes zip like from point A to point B, and it's like a road converging on a highway, but most shows aren't supposed to be roads converging to highways. They're supposed to be like towns with a road passing through, and then it loops around, and then eventually gets to the highway. I guess that's the issue everybody's having here. And though I liked it, I have to admit that there is that fault, and he is overpowered. I mean, he even finds a way to outsmart someone who had more experience than him in combat, the Queen of Artemira.
Okay, I found her name. Her name is Shinobu Otaka.
Yeah.
And she also is also responsible for 2 more mangas called Sumomo Momomo and Alive the Final Evolution.
Yeah.
But the Magi series, that's her most work.
Yeah, that's the most well-known one.
Oh, I want to bring something out. RJ, do you have any idea who plays Sinbad in the Japanese dub? Guys,
I figured you mentioned that there's a secret JoJo reference, so let me hear it.
all right. JoJo's voice actor, Jotaro Kujo's voice actor, Daisuke Ono, and the guy who plays the Dragon is none other than Tomokazu Sugita, also known as Joseph Joestar in Part 2.
Wow.
So
And-
just because my fiance is behind me, and she'll probably nerd out at this. The guy that plays Sinbad in the Japanese version is Sebastian in Black Butler. Okay, so she's
Wow.
like back here, like,
Yeah,
oh,
now
I
that
knew
thi-
that.
now
Yeah,
that I
so they
think about it,
got some really big voice actors. So
no, think about it. His voice actor is Matt Mercer, who played who played Jotaro in the English version, if I recall.
yeah,
And
So,
wow, that they like this guy played a lot of stuff. Like he's pretty good. Yeah, he was in JoJo, he was in Bleach, he was in Attack on Titan.
I'll be
Um,
honest with you, regarding Daisuke Ono's voice, he sounds a lot different. If you
Is it-
compare Jotaro from Part 3.
Is this going to be like the last podcast where we click on one of the voice actors and find out he was in every anime ever?
Yeah, we're gonna go down that. And I mean, just to like really quickly do this, like the Jap and the English one for him played like McCree in Overwatch and Emiya in Fate. So just like you can
Yeah.
just kind of go off that. Where
Yeah, Matthew Mercer, and
yeah,
in the case of Dragon, his voice actor is. You know what? Keep going until I find it. Check it out.
we don't really need to jump
Yeah.
and dive in. Like we can look at like pretty much like 3 of them and just be like, was
Found
this a
it.
high budget voice actors?
Patrick
All
Sites.
right.
Yeah.
I guess
And we can say that they were higher budget.
Yeah, I found it. Patrick Sites, the guy who played Dio Brando in the English version of English dub of Part 3.
all right.
Yeah.
I guess we can move on to the plot.
There's not much of a plot, isn't it?
Well, it's very linear. Like if this was a video game, it would just be like one of the most linear storyline things ever. It would have just been like, okay, go into this dungeon, beat this dungeon, walk out. Now talk to some town people. Now go to the dungeon again. Like that's basically how this felt. Just be kind of like yeah, just kind of it'd be like Legend of Zelda if you had a cursor over your head of where to go every time. I think that would be the best way to describe this.
Yeah.
I need to say one thing. About the whole OP thing, and on top of that, you remember the very beginning where the narrator is talking about the conflict between the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire? Well, remember when the Magi that he meets, Yunnan? Do you remember when like he flies Sinbad back to his village, and it's like it's heavily implied that Yunnan was the one that pulled the Dungeon of Ball, the one with the lightning powers. It's implied that Yunnan summoned that dungeon to see if anybody was worth it or worthy of it.
Well, Yunnan is a wizard.
Yeah, he is a wizard. Entire legions of Persian soldiers and Roman centurions could not overtake that dungeon. Like the dragons would kill them each time. This 14-year-old kid managed to do it with by surfing on a shield.
Yeah, they mentioned that like a couple times in the anime where it's just like they showed how broken he was. Like it was like thousands of people couldn't do this. Like so many people died doing this, and then it became like this legend that this kid did it, and then that was actually why he was on the run for a while too, because it was like these people can't know that this guy did that. And then he also basically just took on the army after he walked out. So yeah, no, it was very much of like you have to be worthy to do this, and yeah.
He totally Vegeta the army, a Gallic gun, except he yelled I believe the phrase Balalark Psycha, it's
Balalark Psycha. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
see-
Arabic and it means flash lightning.
yeah. So in Persian, Bark means and rather New Persian, because Old Persian's been a dead language for a while. But in New Persian, Bark means electricity. But I don't speak Arabic, so yeah. According to the wiki, like him yelling that, he's yelling flash of lightning in Arabic, and it's just that was like something straight out of like the original Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z. He just annihilates that platoon of soldiers coming after him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. So
So it ends up it's a corruption of Barat's side god.
No,
Yeah.
regardless, it was funny. But go
I
ahead. James.
found the most interesting episode to be the one where he's learning how to be a merchant from the King of Rome.
Oh
No,
yeah,
it wasn't Rome. It's the king of Thailand, basically.
Of Thailand.
Thailand.
that
Yeah.
I thought it was the King of Rome.
No, it was a
No,
Taiwanese
no.
character.
Thailand.
I
It
just-
looks like Germany. It
I
looks
just
like Germany.
I just assumed that he was the King of Rome because they were in Rome.
It was no because okay, so it wasn't in. Okay, so that guy was also traveling still, from the biggest city, which during
Yeah.
that time period, Thailand was a major capital of trade.
RJ.
It's very historic kind of stuff that like you'd need to know the nitty gritties if you really care about it. But yeah, it was Thailand at the time.
He's also Alibaba's father. It later turns out.
Yeah.
So
But anyway, I found that episode to be the most interesting because Sinbad actually has to learn something from another character instead of just automatically knowing the solution to all the world's problems.
Oh yeah, Bobbad.
yeah, so
Yeah. So real quick. So these two Roman soldiers show up right when they land their ship, set up store. People are fascinated because they have goods from the Eskimo Vikings that are very rare. And the Roman soldiers tell the crowd to disperse, and they tell them, "Look, dude, you're new into town, so we'll go easy on you this time. You don't have a permit to sell things here." And the king of Thailand happens to be passing by. He's wearing his hood, so nobody
Crimson.
recognizes him.
Pardon me, Crimson, but I have to correct you there. According to the wiki, it represents India.
oh yeah, that
No.
makes more sense.
Well,
No.
it's a mix of both. If you look at
I think it's that region. We could just say it's like that.
it's East Asia.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
because,
it's,
like, you could have said Indonesia, and that still would have made sense.
Yep. So what happens is, and especially all his guards, they have that the clothing they wear is very like Indian slash like you said Indonesian. That's even better. But so he offers money for all their goods. Says, hey, I'll get this stuff off your hands so your goods don't go bad. And then later that night they realize that yeah, sure, they got a whole bag of silver coins, but now their goods are being sold at like 5 or 10 times the price, and at an actual store. So that's when Sinbad approaches him and says, "Hey, can you teach me?" And the guy kind of like he verbally tests Sinbad and says, "If you can make this much amount of money by the time I get back from my trip, I'll take you up on that. I'll be your mentor." And so like on one hand, he's incredibly lucky, and he has precognition. On the other hand, these situations are ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
Rashid pretty much played him like crazy, but he let's say the man's a bro.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think what he did to Sinbad was necessarily unfair.
no.
Oh no, it's his
Because,
business.
Well, everyone in Sinbad's party was like, "Oh my God, we just got swindled," and it was like, well,
Weren't you guys just excited to have a whole bag of silver coins?
well, yeah, it was like, well, you couldn't sell your goods, and you still made a pretty profit.
Yeah, like
And now you're just mad because the person you already made money off of is now making more money.
what are I'm Nintendo, and now I'm mad that Walmart is making more money than me off of my product. Like that's basically how that felt.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like yeah, guess what? You're the trade company that's going to be bringing goods back and forth, and then he was the one setting up the shop. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it just didn't. I was like,
No,
what do you
it
mean? Like,
couldn't be
that's
more
the issue.
perfect.
Like I thought that was how that was gonna get resolved. Of like he was gonna join their trade company, and he was the one that was gonna be like, build like it's like I will give you the ships and then you'll work on the partnerships and then you'll get a cut of the profit was I thought where that was going to go, not I'm going to teach you how to make a profit and do everything that I was doing. Like that's where I thought like the storyline went a little bit awry there. Um,
In the manga, it even gets weirder. So after Sinbad basically frees himself from slavery, forcibly takes all the property and assets of the woman who enslaved him. He then relocates to Balbad, and the way he's able to return to Persia is the king of Balbad, Rashid, tells him, "Hey, I'm visiting Persia. If you want to come with me, I can just disguise you as one of my soldiers." And Barbarossa immediately recognizes him, and he says, "You don't need to, be nervous around me. You're not a fugitive here anymore." And that kind of throws him off. But anyways, as I mentioned, it's like Otaka, Shinobu Otaka, she had this idea for where she wanted like the end of her entire story to go, like where that universe was headed, like in her world building, and then she kind of rushed this character's arc into the main road, like the main highway.
Uh,
Mm.
have we?
Everything happens one after the other. He becomes a slave in Rome to this Arabic woman. He gains his freedom. He goes, "Hey, I can just leave Rome and go to Indonesia." And he starts living there, and all of a sudden, Drakon and the princess show up saying, "Hey, Persia's had a civil war. We need your help." And yeah, that's everything happens one after the other, just nonstop.
Did we talk about the main reason why one of the main characters wanted to join Sinbad's troop, mistress, because he wanted to see the world?
Yeah, the Prince of Sasan.
yeah. And just to kind of like we're getting close to that hour mark, so just to kind of wrap this up, like I guess we can talk like more generally about the plot, just to kind of skim
Mhm.
past it. Uh, I thought like there was parts of this that were like really good with like how they said it, but I also had like both issues and non-issues where like the last few episodes felt like reverse fan service for like all the female.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Uh,
like I had an issue with that where like it definitely felt like OVA, but like reverse OVA for like all the female watchers rather than male watchers. Which I
that looked
thought
more like.
I thought this was more like geared towards guys, so like to see that was also kind of odd, I guess.
The funny thing was, it kind of looked like a straight up comedy, considering the chemistry between Sinbad, Jafar, and Hina.
Yeah, and I mean
You
like
know,
going into
Yeah,
like the
Hina Ho Ho.
brothel near the end where it was like I knew it was gonna be a guy brothel. I knew the setup.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
same
yeah,
here.
there
yeah.
was
It's
just
it's a female-run country. The brothel's gonna have men in it.
yeah, like and then like basically the death by snoo snoo part, like like
I was
there's
actually hoping it would
yeah.
be that.
So I mean there was like so many of those moments near the end where it just kind of turned from like this more serious and like a very comedic kind of thing.
It reminded me of Ranma and Inuyasha because that also had
Yeah.
a female writer with a similar style.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to bring that out, like where the beginning very much felt like a very well put storyline. I think we all agreed that the storyline was really well done, but the
Mhm.
ending just like the storyline kind of fell apart and it just became like, hey, look, butts and abs and like they're naked for like two
Yeah.
episodes and it's
Man,
just
It feels
man,
like it feels like at the end they just kind of ran out of episodes but kind of forgot to finish the story.
yeah. So I just
I,
wanted to
I, I was gonna say one quick thing. Lewis had asked me this before while he was watching. He wanted to know if there were like inspirations in the show that were accurate to the actual mythos.
yeah.
There's a couple things in this anime that actually are from Persian mythology. One of them was the faraway land where people would use pieces of meat to gather gemstones, and Artemura ended up being that land in this one. So there's pieces of mythology that inspired like the actual anime.
Yeah.
My question was more than like, so what's it true to the Persian myth?
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's a lot of like one thing that I will give credit to almost all manga writers that end up being very popular animes is there's so much research that goes into like the mythos of all of these shows that it like you can do your research and find out like the real things, but like they stick pretty close to a lot of these myths and legends, or at least like bring a lot of inspiration off of it. All right,
mhm.
so I think we're pretty much through all of that, and I think we can just go through the plot since we're like really edging it on an hour right now. So,
Yep.
uh,
What do you guys think about like what was your favorite part or most like well also Josh, you answered me on what you thought of Artemura, which was it's
yeah,
just basically reverse fan service.
yeah. But I'll just do that with my review. And I need to bring up a calculator really, really quickly. But basically, I probably my favorite parts were just the dungeons. I liked seeing the Jinn and like how they interact with Sinbad because that was more interesting than most of the other interactions with him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I also enjoyed the characters, so like seeing the different areas and the different legends that kind of follow each part. I really
All
like
right.
the ending because I like comedy stuff though, so I'll say that. But yeah, all in all, just together, I'd probably give this like I don't know 6.5. Honestly, it was good, but it wasn't like an anime I enjoyed. It was more exactly what it is. It's an OVA that was well done.
RJ.
I'd give it a 7.5. I would have given it an 8, but I couldn't help but feel some parts were rushed. Having read the manga, especially, the manga was a lot more detailed. Well, a little bit more detailed, but either way, I enjoyed it. It reminded me of Chrono Trigger, just like the main Magi series also did that. This reminded me a bit more like of Chrono Cross because Chrono Cross has a similar setting where you're a guy who is lives in a beachside village and you end up exploring the world. This reminded me more of Chrono Cross, and Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger are two of my favorite games. So I liked it for that, and I liked it for the Persian mythology, but I also liked it for the interactions he had with the Jinn. But there like some parts were really OP. Like when he used Valifor on Artemura, and she's like, "How come I'm not as? How come I'm slowing down? How come he's predicting my attacks?" And I, the part I did like where he was using his abilities was one when he scared the king of Sasa and he said, "Dude, I'm not an enemy and I have this much power. I can blow away like 5 mountains. Imagine if someone who doesn't like you gains something like this. That's why I want to form an allegiance with you." So that part was kind of funny. But the part I really liked was when he decimated those soldiers. He just pulled a Vegeta and like Ball shows up. Yunnan tells him, "Hey, you have the power of a genie now. You have the power of a Djinn. Call him forth." And he calls Ball, and Ball says, he basically what surmounts this like more or less. Seriously, dude, you just captured my dungeon. You're gonna ask me for help right now? Okay. He just shoots down lightning.
All right. Let's see. Wait. Are we writing down these scores?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Striker, you wanna
okay.
get,
Yeah, Striker.
All right. I'm gonna be honest here. This is gonna be a personal anecdote, but I was sick by the time I was watching this anime, and it really got me. And the battles, honestly, got me. Were the best part, easily the best part, and the chemistry between the main characters, especially Hina Hoho and Rumuru, who is his wife, and then then we have the redemption arc with Jafar and Sinbad's being. I would call Sinbad as a Gary Stu with a mix of smart ass put in there for good measure. Honestly, yeah, I was disappointed by the fact that this was actually pretty short and it was very rushed.
Yeah,
So
I completely agree with you. It felt really rushed.
yeah, and honestly, I was honestly looking for more, but it is what it is. This is a spinoff, really. And now today's sponsor, which is Syndria, merchant company.
The
Syndria
Centurion Trade Company.
Yeah, Syndria Trade Company.
Oh yeah,
How
no.
many-
Lewis likes to joke about fake sponsors. Anyways,
All
what's
right.
your score?
Yeah.
My score, honestly, it's a 7.
7.
Gotcha.
All right.
All right.
You know
All
what?
right.
You know what? Really quick. You know what I liked about Hina Ho-Ho's arc? When he was proposing marriage to Rurumu,
Yeah,
her dad was this like badass like Viking Eskimo Turkmen guy, Ramatoto. He's like, look, you have the audacity to sit in front of me and ask for a hand in marriage with my daughter. You better have something to provide for her. And Sinbad's like, I'm here to help him with that. Like that was pretty.
Yeah.
the
All right. All
boss
right.
on this guy.
All right. So anyway, this show, it has a lot going for it. You know, it has good animation. The plot holds up for the most part. You know, fight scenes are pretty cool. Main characters or the supporting cast, very very good. But absolutely everything, save for a few elements that are good, are inevitably dragged down by Sinbad himself. See, the problem with this character is not just that he's like a poorly written character on its own, but since he's the main character, it also drags down other elements of the work. If if there's a great fight scene, well, all the tension in that fight scene is taken away because you already know the outcome. If there's a problem in the plot, a problem that the characters face, well, who cares? Sinbad's gonna take care of it. So, well, what does this mean? Well, it means that things that were going to be good and that should be good are now tarnished inevitably by their choice of making Sinbad so unbelievably overpowered for no reason.
If you end up reading the Magi
Well,
manga,
we're not
what you're saying.
reading. We're not reading
No.
the manga.
I know. I'm saying like the whole point of this was to see if it holds up on its own, and it kind of doesn't. But I was saying is, in the written medium, his personality kind of fits. But with how rushed the show is, this is just it kind of highlights the problems.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we could talk about that with any anime, really, because there's been so many animes where the manga is 1,000 times better than the anime. I told you guys about one where they put 80 episodes or 80 chapters of something into 13 episodes. I mean, like, we can go into that all day about different animes, but at the end of the day, we're watching the anime and we aren't reading the manga. So I'll just let
I was agreeing with Neo Tokyo.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I know.
All right, but anyway, with all of that in mind, I have to give it a 6. Like everything, or mostly everything, is trying to be competent and is almost succeeding, but is being dragged down by the main character, and it's you just can't have that. It's a 6. I don't think it holds up on its own. it's probably better if you watch the other series and you're already invested in everything. And I don't think it's meant to hold up on its own. But we're reviewing the work in and of itself, and not the work in context of everything around it.
Yeah. And just to kind of highlight that, I've been enjoying the main series more than I enjoyed this. So,
Yeah. In all honesty, it's a spin-off more than anything.
Yeah.
And we should treat it as
It's
that.
a prequel, and we're rating it as that, and like
Yeah.
All right, what's our score?
Our score is a 6.75, which compared to the people that, and like we were saying, and I want to put this as a precursor, the people that are watching this most likely saw the main series and then went, oh, there's more, I can get backstory. The MAL has it at an 8 out of 10, and the IMBD has it at a 7.6. So if you watch the series and you enjoyed the series, you're most likely going to watch this and very much enjoy this. If you didn't watch it, you're probably not going to like it as much. That's just kind of how this works, and you can definitely see that with us talking. I can tell that if I watched the full series and then I watched this, I would have had a little bit less issues. But I'm trying to just be as objective as possible because I wasn't supposed to watch it. He was asking us to see if we were seeing if it held up on its own. And I think character-wise it does, but story-wise and Sinbad-wise it doesn't. So.
Yeah. All right, everyone. That was our March 2020 podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it, and hope you all have a good night.
Good night.
Stay safe. Stay safe. Stay warm.
Stay inside.
Stay inside.
Stay alive.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Watch
Good night,
anime,
everyone.
just not this one. Bye.